Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored to be here today live in Bethesda, Maryland at the USILAW headquarters here in Bethesda, also in the Henry Jackson Foundation building here, a phenomenal world-class facility. And we are joined today with Dr. Joe Carvalo here, who's the CEO of the Henry Jackson Foundation. How are you doing today, Joe?
I'm great, thanks.
Hey, and get in the comments here. We're talking about immigration. We just had an amazing immigration and global mobility symposium today with a whole bunch of corporate folks sharing their ideas, their questions, their hopes and dreams about immigration. But I thought it'd be really cool to talk to a CEO to get that C-suite perspective. I talk to global mobility managers and immigration managers all the time to say they just want a seat at the table. They want to be in the room where the decisions are made. They want to be able to take all this knowledge and expertise that they have and influence the policy at their organization and the globalization strategy and the global talent strategy. And today we actually have a CEO who can share with us a little bit about how you deploy global talent strategies to support the mission. Get in the comments. I want to hear from you. Hit that like button, hit that comments, put questions out there. We'll ask Dr. Joe those questions. Can I call you Dr. Joe?
You may.
Okay, thanks, sir. All right, very good. But first, real quick, why don't you tell us a little bit about Henry Jackson Foundation?
Thanks, Ben. Henry Jackson Foundation, or HJF, is a congressionally authorized civilian nonprofit organization. And the reason I say it that way is very unique in that Congress has authorized us. There are only two others like that, the Smithsonian Institute Foundation and the Kennedy Center Foundation.
Oh, wow.
And the purpose for us is to advance military medicine. So we are created to complement what military medicine is needed to advance for the benefit of its warfighters.
And you support the warfighter and looking into I presume cures for diseases and things like that. I mean, all the way to vaccines that also have impacts into our civilian worlds as well, don't they?
Yeah. So if you think of the warfighter as what drives our focus areas when it comes to research, we want to make that warfighter, man or woman, as resilient, as agile, as survivable as possible. So we want them to perform under austere conditions, protect them from diseases, injuries, wounds, et cetera, et cetera. So you think about it, for that cohort, whether 18 to 45 is applicable to anyone else in humanity. So it's really a stair step towards global health.
Yeah. And when I think about it, it's interesting. We don't always think about the military in organizations like yours, in medicine always, right? But I mean, I remember when we were, rolling out the COVID vaccine, the Operation Warp Speed. I mean, the military was at the forefront of that logistical effort. And I think about those kinds of things, and I don't even know the amounts of vaccines and other types of treatments that have been kind of pioneered. There's some certain ones that maybe that y'all have had a hand in working on, or some of the projects that you're working on that we might resonate with.
Well, a lot of innovation in American and world health has come from the military and the U.S. military in particular. Vaccines for yellow fever, as an example. Some of the work that we've done with heart surgery came from that. Some of the lessons that we've learned in liver disease management, preventive and public health medicine, a lot of it is from military medicine.
That's awesome. Get in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts out there. Check in with us. Let us know who you are, where you are. We want to keep it interactive. If you've got questions for Dr. Joe here from HJF, let us know here. Jana checking in. Looking forward to hearing the insights from Brazil. Hey, Jana from Brazil. Jana was mentioning to me down in Brazil, they're really struggling with the dengue fever down there, the mosquitoes and stuff. And, is that something that you've had to consider?
Yeah. So when you look at a lot of infectious diseases, it's endemic throughout much of the world. And we have the great fortune in the United States not to have many of these infectious diseases. Now, that said, the military has the potential to go anywhere in the world. So they may jump into literally areas with endemic diseases. It behooves them, and it behooves the military medical community to create a vaccine that protects them against those. So we do think about dengue quite a bit, and as well as malaria, and some of the other infectious diseases we see.
Oh, appreciate that. Nafis Chaudhary checking in here in Bethesda. It is amazing to see the perspective of a CEO, particularly one who has devoted his life to the service of our armed forces and the general public by extension. Your background, you want to share with us just a little bit about how you came into this?
Well, I was born on a Sunday morning.
Not that far back.
Okay,
Flash forward for us, okay?
All right.
It's a long show, but it's not that long, right?
I was born and raised in Hawaii. Went to college in Washington State. Did ROTC. Fell in love with the Army, and then went to school here in Bethesda, Maryland, at the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences. And then has been an Army physician. I've been an Army physician for 38 years. Retired on the Joint Staff Surgeon as a Joint Staff Surgeon, working for the chairman, and as a senior uniformed military medical advisor to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So very, very proud of my experience. Spent 10 years in special operations as a ranger of special forces, and jumped out of perfectly good airplanes and ate snakes and things like that.
Wow.
So in addition, clinically, I'm a cardiologist and nuclear medicine specialist. So a great bar trick I have is as a cardiologist and Green Beret, I can kill you and then bring you back to life.
And then bring you back to life.
Yeah, so.
Oh, gosh, that's really great. Well, don't do either of those things today, hopefully. But no, that's really cool. As you talk about going, to austere environments, I mean, obviously you've experienced that through your training and your service. And thank you so much, sir, for your service and all the people out there that sacrifice to make our country the country that it is, so that we can be leaders in medicine and other ways. I want to ask you, talking about global, and we just sat through a wonderful immigration symposium. You shared some about Henry Jackson Foundation there. How are you looking at global talent to support your mission at HGIV?
Well, there's two ways we are globally minded. One is we have 2,800 staff at HGF, and we're in several continents, many countries, and many of our staff are located in Southeast Asia and Africa. So we have that global footprint, and we use local talent whenever possible. Very impressive talent across the globe. Here in the United States, we make use of individuals with great talent coming from other countries here. And when they have the right talent, and when they fit the bill for what our faculty at USU primarily need to conduct science, then we spend a lot of time getting them their H-1B visa. Mm-hmm. Now, that visa is, as you know, is only good for so long. So it isn't long before this talent we need to stay in the United States. And that's where we come in to USILAW to help us in our application for green card, and then to bring them on and naturalize them as U.S. citizens. We've had a lot of great success, and we appreciate the partnership. A lot of our senior scientists that have significant intellectual property inventions for the United States are the product of that H-1B visa process, working with us and then progressing in their science.
Wow. Yeah. I think sometimes in the narratives that we see, we lose track of the contributions of foreign nationals and immigrants to this country and what they've done to build our country and advance us, especially in the sciences. It's pretty incredible. We've got questions coming in. Keep those questions coming in. Hit that like button. I'm going to get to your questions and prioritize them. I do want to ask one question, though. I talk to my global mobility friends and my immigration friends, and they always want to be more strategic. And I wanted to ask, what advice would you give to someone who might be watching this program, who's sitting in the corporate immigration, seat within a company, and they want to get more strategic. They want to have their voice heard. They want to influence policy within their organization. What advice would you give that person?
Well, I think you're talking about people who need immigrants, or
maybe they're sitting in a company somewhere and they manage immigration, and they have all these really bright ideas about how to get talent, how to bring talent to this to the company, how to maybe outcompete, the big boys out there, the Amazons or the major pharma companies or whatever, because we've heard some of those really cool ideas today, but maybe they don't feel like their voice is always heard, or they're not always consulted because they sit within the HR function, and they sit maybe, lower down the pecking order. What would be your advice there?
Well, I would say they ought to hire someone like we've hired, Ritu Dubey, who's exceptional in that immigration field, and what it requires is staying current on the policies. And something one doesn't realize when an administration stays on and then is followed within the same party, that the immigration laws and policies change with each immigration. So you must stay up on that and track that closely. And then I would say, if you can stay pure and consistent, objective in your selection, don't try to pound a square peg in a round hole, but find the right talent. And then see where it matches. In our world, it's STEM, and so we do not go out of our way to get a person A, B, or C in. If they fit the bill, we'll go out of our way to get them on board. Our last application process, I think we've submitted 1,000 pages of paperwork. The application letter itself was 42 pages.
Wow.
So it is a heavy lift, and certainly worthwhile for the talent. So knowing the policy, picking the right people, knowing the demand signal, and then matching it with the right person rather than the next person, I think is going to be key.
Yeah, well, you talk about 40-something page application. I mean, there's a lot of research and a lot of documentation and justification in that document. I've seen these things range anywhere from a few pages to 40-something pages, and it does show the commitment to getting that approved. And it's no wonder that you've had such success, to be honest with you. We've got some questions coming in here. Put those questions in the comments here. One is from Christian. It says, Dr. Carvalo, what can we all do to prevent misguided and dangerous misinformation about vaccines from spreading? It's scary. Also, thank you for your service.
Thanks. Misinformation is a tough thing. And the reason for that is when you hear information, let's say from your doctor, and she tells you X, Y, and Z, and then you turn around and you look on social media and you see A, B, and C, and they are completely different. The key is you shouldn't see all of that coming at the same speed. So you is what's trustworthy, right? So if you trust, the key is if you have a trusted agent, that trusted agent may be your physician, maybe your pastor, maybe your sister, maybe someone in your community, but put a lot of weight on that person that you vetted, that you trust over time, and what she says. Social media, I would say I would not put the same weight on that, and that's going to be the key. If you see them coming at the same speed, you automatically say, I don't know what to believe because it's all hitting me, and then you stop believing anything. Then you're stuck.
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a great point, Christian. And sometimes we have people who are doctors, out there as well, who have different opinions on things. I mean, that happens all the time. We see it in the movies, right? Do you concur, doctor? I concur. Do you concur? And it's hard to always be on the same page because we're making educated guesses about things. But yeah, Christian, it's a great question here. Anandita says, what a privilege. Get your questions and comments in here. Anandita says, what a privilege to have Dr. Joe speaking today. Dr. Joe, that might catch. I don't know if people call you that all the time, but I kind of like it. Has a ring to it. We have so much to learn from him as a professional and also the great organization he represents. Thank you for your service. Yeah, indeed. You've been so gracious as to open up these phenomenal world-class facilities. We have that room the upstairs that we did the round table in. It was a little more intimate. We've used this absolutely fantastic. All I can say is I call it the UN of Bethesda. This auditorium, this amphitheater that you've created over here is absolutely phenomenal. I got to ask you, why did you make such an investment in that facility? Thank you so much for letting us use it. It's the most inclusive, way to get your voice heard. I love it. I'll talk more about it, but I wanted to ask you why that was important to you to create that facility.
So our mission, day in and day out, is to advance military medicine. We think the secret sauce for DoD medicine to advance is to not do it on its own, but to use public-private partnerships. And a big part of that then is collaboration with civilian partners. So we created an auditorium that allows for an interactive engagement through the use of people can sit interspersed throughout a 170 seat auditorium,
170
but
seats.
with the table mics throughout, so that everyone has a voice. So in-person engagements, you can be collaborative. But what's unique about that auditorium is that when you push to talk, the camera at the front will then aim at you. So like a fan cam in a basketball arena. And so that allows every individual in the auditorium to just keep looking forward. And then they can engage almost like a real life Zoom. And seeing the person ask a question is a different experience. Now imagine the next person to ask a question is from Thailand, and you'll see that same Zoom type of picture. And so now people from all over the world can then collaborate at these meetings.
It really levels the playing field too, because if you're remote, I mean, how many of us have been on a remote meeting and then other folks are in person, and it feels like we're almost eavesdropping or peering in on their meeting, but we're not really a part of it. You know, the voices are muffled. We don't really know who's talking. We're missing the nuances of a raised eyebrow or a smile, right? We're missing those things. And I love it because we can bring people from around the world into one of these immigration and global mobility, discussions and presentations, symposiums that we do, as I'm sure you do with probably even more important topics than this. But and it really puts everybody on the same playing field.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's the best of in-person and the best of remote. I think it's phenomenal.
No, thank you. We're very excited. It's certainly state of the art for 6 months more or whatever as everything moves along. But we're watching and we're trying to stay up with that. The key is the monitors now are high resolution, so you don't have to darken the room. No projection screens. It's very, very exciting.
Why are you so welcoming with letting us use that? I mean, why is that important? I can tell in talking to you that you love the fact that we use it. Why is it important for you to open these facilities?
All right. Well, my ulterior motive is I need everyone in America to feel like the military is their military, right? I don't want the military to be constrained to San Diego or Fayetteville, North Carolina. I want Duluth, Minnesota, Bethesda, Maryland, everyone to feel like, boy, this is my military. And not only is it my military, but the people within that military, I want them to imagine that's an 18-year-old, 21-year-old, our nation's oldest children, youngest adults, whose mission is to defend our nation, defend the ideals of freedom and democracy. So you don't even get bent out of shape on which administration, which president, whatever. Just think about that 18-year-old who's thinking, is my weapon clean enough because I might need it tonight? Am I at peace with God because I might die tonight? And once you let that sit in, how can you not do everything possible to help her be as agile, resilient, and survivable as possible? So all these engagements, all these exposures, the fact that you're in this building and you get to see people in uniform walking in and out, oh, they're humans. They're my age. They look like me. They have and that then leads to, they have the same thoughts we do, the same desires, the same dreams for their family, et cetera, et cetera. And these guys are defending us. Now, you don't have to be patriots are not solely those in uniform, right? You can be a patriot, love the country. You can do things for the people, appointed officials, or whatever. But these guys are prepared to die for our country, defending it.
I love that. I really do. And, you have the warfighter. There's also the scientist and the engineer. And that's honestly a story that doesn't get told enough, and I love that about your mission at HJF. And I think that's also an eye opener for me, and not only how we help support the warfighter wherever they go in these austere environments, but then we also keep that science to help the civilian population.
Yeah, when I left the military, no one took away my cardiology certification or stripped my brain of whatever I had learned. It is amazing. Again, when you don't know much about the military, you think about the essence of each force, right? They fly planes or they're infantry or whatever. We have microbiologists, virologists, pharmacists. We have every specialty that helps keep the warfighter in top performance shape.
Get in the comments and ask your questions. We've got Dr. Joe Carvalo here for just a moment more before we bring in Ritu Dubey, who manages the immigration for Henry Jackson Foundation. So we've got time for maybe just a couple more questions. But I want to ask, you know, so you talk about the virologists, you know, and the microbiologists and things like that, you know, in your career, how have you seen the war, so to speak, or the conflict change in nature from being kind of a boots on the ground exercise to being digital, to being biological, to being informational? I mean, it feels like it's changing to me as an observer.
Yeah, early on, war was a physical
Yeah.
contact situation. We talked about the domains of the warfighting domains. So we would think, well, where do we fight, right? So initially it was maritime and land.
Mm-hmm.
Then they added space, sky, right, or air.
Yeah.
Then they added space,
Yeah.
right? Then they said, you know what? This is all physically where we fight, but you know what? We fight in cyber.
Mm-hmm.
So they created a cyber command because that's very important. And now we're at the point where we think that their warfare is going to be trans-regional, multi-domain, multifunctional. So that means when we're fighting against an adversary, it is not hand-to-hand combat. It could be in many places across the globe. It could be in many domains at the same time, and it could be competition that you don't even know is happening.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, to what you're speaking about. Not to make it a scary world, but it is something the military thinks about all the time.
Well, I think it's less scary when we know there's qualified people out there that are planning for this and that are already building our defenses and working on vaccines that haven't become pandemics yet. You know, I mean, that's nice to know,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I mean, it felt like COVID-19 caught us off guard a little bit, and then we were playing catch up. And I think, you know, we did a great job, Operational Warp Speed, and developing these vaccines, getting them deployed. I mean, it was something. I'm actually curious, you know, as a doctor, you know, as well as a doctor, what are your thoughts on, you know, I mean, is that something that's going to be studied for years about how we deployed this? I mean, obviously there's always things we could do better, right? Of course. But I mean, the way we stood this up, you know, we hear, you know, comparisons to the Spanish flu in the early part of the 20th century, you know, and obviously how that decimated populations during was World War I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, a little before my time, right? But I mean, you know, what do you think about just maybe the ability to stand up a vaccine and then to deploy it so quickly? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we're going to look back and see that we accomplished with incredible speed a medical countermeasure. Now, there are many countermeasures. Before we got to the vaccine, you had to do, which was the only thing possible, is if you knew this was infectious, then stay away from those who were infectious.
Right.
And then what we're going to really study is how political this got and how it really pushed the envelope on one's liberty, and what would one do for the good of the community versus what impacted
like a sociological experiment almost, right?
That's right. And just because the doctor, or the nation's doctor in this case, Dr. Fauci, said to do X, Y, and Z, people said, I don't have to listen to you, right? That's not the way I started in medicine, right? Marcus Welby says, do this, you nod your head, you do it.
Right.
And so we've gone to the point, litigious area, where you say, I think you should do this, but this is why, here's the risk, et cetera, et cetera. What do you want to do? Is where we are now. Misinformation has always been out there, right?
Sure.
People don't like to take their blood pressure meds. You got to convince them, whatever. You got to inspire them. You got to trick them sometimes, what have you. So this is not new, but it could be dangerous, right? So until you get the herd immunity, should a lot of people die in the process, or should you do something for the good of the community? That's going to be the big decision point. Like you said, sociological discussion. How did that play out? Because it's a matter, we should think about not if it happens, but when it happens again. Because it's very likely.
I mean, we're going through a bit of a flare up right now with COVID. You know, with and so it's one of those things that's people predicted how long this would impact us. And we're all like, yeah, right. And it's like, here we are in 2024, we're still dealing with the impact of COVID, We got a question here from Nan Park coming in here. What's up, Nan? He said, what advice would you give to help building alliances with federal agencies and impact on technological innovation?
Well, every agency realizes they cannot operate on their own at the speed of innovation. They can barely really operate at the speed of business, civilian business. So they are all taking measures to partner with civilians. So the key is I would check their websites and see what opportunities they have for you to come together, whether it's a vendor day, industry day, capabilities day, or engagements. We're taking the lead on that, and we're leveraging the fact that we have 1 foot in the military space, one foot in civilian space, and we convene. So the military, in our experience, is uber conservative. So how about if we bring people together? So no one is, how come I invited you but not you, et cetera, et cetera. If we bring everyone together, military would very willingly say, these are our challenges, and then everyone else can listen, and then what solutions do I see that maybe you don't see within the military? So there are opportunities like that everywhere. You just got to listen for them or check their website to find them.
And I've done some work with military agencies in the past, and that's one good thing about working with the federal agencies is do Freedom of Information Act and the transparency required to govern, right? Everything's on the website, everything's super transparent, and you can look just about anything up. And then you understand what's happening. You understand when contracts come out and grants come out and things like that. Oftentimes I've heard by the time you read about it, it's too late, right? You kind of have to be in the grant writing phase of it, or you have to kind of, and so, I mean, one thing I think sometimes we forget, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, is that there are people behind the acquisition process. There are people behind creating the business case and rules. And how do you find those people and navigate those channels? And I'm really curious about that, because there's probably going to be a lot of people watching this right now saying, I have a great solution I'd love to bring to federal agencies, but I just don't know who to talk to and where to start.
So I used to command the medical research and material command. So global, multi-billion-dollar organization. So people, once they knew that, I get all these emails. I have this product. I have this study. Invariably, it's a great idea, from toothpaste to stopping bleeding, and they were in want of funding to do that. And people realize if you can get DoD to be part of it, you get the Good Housekeeping seal of approval.
Yeah.
DoD is on board, but they don't realize. But I'll tell the audience here now is, if DoD is on board, it's just a couple of chess moves away. NATO's on board. So now you have an international input on something, and a lot of things that are, like I mentioned before, that is good for the warfighter. There's a market, commercial market for it.
Yeah.
So the key is to find that, and to find, your question is, how do you find out about that early enough? The websites are there. The military doesn't give advantage to anybody. So because of that, it appears overly bureaucratic. So it's not a matter of, boy, that guy has inside baseball information. It's just a matter of staying current. And you do have to be facile at writing proposals. And then, if I can just make one recommendation, you have to be responsive to the RFP, right? You cannot say, I have an idea, and by God, I'm so smart, I'm going to make it look like my product is going to fit what they want. And I've seen a lot of proposals get thrown out because they're not responsive out of the gates.
I got you. Well, yeah, I love that. And I also would say along those lines is showing up to conferences. I mean, gosh, for those of you in the relocation industry, I'm going to the GSA pre-bid meeting tomorrow, right? Actually, there's one going on today, and there's one going on tomorrow about relocation, and as well as house of goods transportation. And showing up to those meetings, it's free to attend, and it's open to the public to register. But you have to show up, and you have to be in the room, because they're going to start talking and forecasting their requirements, and that's your opportunity. And it's always good at the end to, shake someone's hand and say, great presentation. I look forward to seeing the requirements come out or whatever, And I started my career doing that. I got laughed out of a lot of rooms in the beginning because I was trying to put a square peg in a round hole. But over time, and it took a while of me being, annoying and omnipresent and not going away. But the shape of the hole changed a little bit too. And they started saying, well, why is the hole circular? Why don't we square it out a little bit and then include some of these other requirements? And so I started seeing these requirements change. So I was very blessed and fortunate early in my career. I had some people at the Pentagon level and things like that, policy level, that actually allowed me to bring some ideas forward when they wrote the policies and the requirements, which was great. That was a really cool moment for me as a late 20s person. This is really great. I want to save time for Ritu, who's the star of the immigration show here, and I know that's really what a lot of folks out there are thinking about. But Dr. Joe Carvalo, I want to ask you, just in parting, maybe just a final thought about the importance of talent mobility as we seek to support the mission.
Well, I'm all about humanity. Our organization is driven towards the American warfighter, but there are people who can contribute from every walk of life, from every country of origin, and we welcome folks if they have the talent, the skills, the desire, the passion. We want them, and we'll do everything we can to bring them on board.
Awesome, fantastic. Dr. Joe, thank you so much for being here. We got Ritu Dubey coming in. Do you want to find her? Is she out there? Here, let me steal your microphone away, sir, and then I'll pass the audio baton to my good friend over here, the superstar of immigration here. You want to put that on your lapel, maybe?
Sure.
There you go. Maybe the other one, so when you face towards me, you can. It's all about me here, don't you know?
Okay.
Ritu, thank you so much for being here. This is fantastic. We got a really cool chance today to kind of gather around the table with some other cool global mobility professionals and chat a little bit about what's going on. Was there anything that maybe stuck out to you that you could share about that experience?
That was a very, very robust discussion. Thank you for facilitating that and emceeing it. I think the commonality is every organization pretty much struggles with the same things fundamentally. It's decision making, it's when to do what. It's also how to make the experience better for the foreign national, to have a mutually beneficial partnership. I think the big takeaway was partnership instead of like, I'm the employee or the employee. Piggybacking off of what Dr. Carvalo said, I think there's a shift in the approach to immigration in that it's more of a mindset rather than a process. It's
what do you mean by that?
It feels less transactional in, like, I've said this before, so not to sound redundant, but the same four letters are in the word file and life, right? The approach nowadays, especially after all the turbulence we've experienced with the global pandemic, with us all employing a diverse workforce, is at the end of it, there is a human being, it's someone's life. It's not just a file, just an administrative process that has to be completed or an approval that has to be received from a federal agency. I think USILAW is very big on the duty of care, which is very relevant here, because at the end of it all, after all the forms and signatures and processes and fees and delays and hoops that we have to jump through with immigration, there is a human at the end of it, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
And again, bringing home the point that Dr. Joe, as you call him,
I like that, Dr. Joe. It might stick.
Does have a good.
Like we start calling, Fauci, Dr. Fauci, Tony Fauci, Dr. Joe. Yeah, Dr. Joe could be a thing. I think. I don't know.
It's definitely catchy. It's what are we doing to impact the warfighter or civilian public health, or whether it's finding a therapeutic intervention, whether it's finding a cure, whether it's making that 1-inch progress. It matters, and I think what we discussed on our roundtable earlier today is that it's from many different angles, right? You have IT software engineers coding, creating databases. We have biostatisticians working with large clinical data sets across the globe. We have scientists, we have researchers, we have epidemiologists, and in some microscopic way, every single one of them is helping inch the solution along.
Yeah.
So
That's a nice pun, by the way. Microscopic way, because you're talking about micro.
yes,
Just a micro
I'm glad you picked up on it.
Hit that like button, get in the comments. If you like Ritu's puns, let us know. If you don't, hey, let us know too. That's fine. I mean, dad jokes are great here. Science jokes are great here. We got people checking in here.
Analogies too.
We love analogies. Analogies are fantastic. Talent retention, aka just strap those guys in the chair for 10 years. No, Jana's saying always awesome to have Ritu sharing. Yes, Jana. Hit that like button, get in here. Teresa has a question for you though.
Okay.
Before we pull back the curtain on the discussions we had earlier, she says, what would you suggest for the talent who is looking for professional opportunities and will go through these immigration processes?
I'm not sure I'm clear on the question. The US labor force is very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the talent that we see at our organization is in the STEM fields. It's very competitive. There's a lot of foreign national students in the STEM world. Showcase your X factor, I guess. What is it that makes you stand out from the rest of the crowd? You know, we work with your team on outstanding researcher petitions. What does make you outstanding? What is that X factor that the rest of the graduating class doesn't have, that you have, that makes an employer want to pick you over somebody else?
Yeah. And you know, one of the interesting things that came out of the roundtable discussion was that different companies have different standards for how they process PERM and like green cards, right? So it's, you know, that's something from a talent strategy as well that companies are offering, and the talents might be evaluating for and saying, okay, is this a place where, you know, I could get permanent status? Possibly, it seemed like.
Yeah, absolutely. And also it's a lot of it from the organizational standpoint is policy making, right? What is the organization's policy? What is their approach? We're not in a world of band-aid solutions where you get someone for a few years, work on a project in one door, out the other. These are long-term commitments that employees are willing to make to their employers, and employers have to return the favor. It has to be a mutually beneficial partnership. But yeah, it is a competitive marketplace, and the continually changing immigration law does not make it easy. We're always at the mercy of rules changing on a daily, monthly, weekly basis. With the administration and the geopolitical climate changing, that impacts our immigration regulation as well. But, you know, that's a great question, Teresa. Now you've given me food for thought as well. Thank you.
Yeah, this is good questions here. Get those questions in here. Get those comments in here. Hit that like button as well. Ritu is one of my favorite people to hang out with. I'm in the DC area.
Go Cowboys.
Both Cowboy fans. Yeah, let's go.
Cowboys.
Not too early. We need all the help we can get. Christian saying puns are severely underrated in global mobility.
Is that a cue, Christian, for us moving to the underrated, overrated section of the podcast?
I don't know that we've prepared. Have we prepared that? More pun. Christian, put your own puns in there. Listen, stop. This is not a one-way pun street here, okay? Put your own puns in there. I want to hear what you have to say, Christian. Nafis is always good for a pun.
Yeah, he's very, very eloquent.
Nafis says, as a professional in mobility, what is the most difficult challenge you face, especially from within your organization? Yeah, especially the CEO. I mean, does that have a challenge for us? Just kidding. Dr. Joe,
you put me on the spot here.
No, well, you know, whatever you can share, though. But what are some of the challenges that you face?
You mentioned something while speaking to Dr. Joe about immigration, right? And what I want to say is, it's not a vacuum. It's not an isolated unit that just sits behind a desk and does the work. Okay, we kill a lot of trees, so I apologize to all the environmental.
You recycle them, though, right?
Homeland Security is still largely paper-based, but
isn't that crazy, by the way, that we're still sending in like reams of paper for these things?
Yeah, and you know, I mean, hey, the federal agencies need some serious IT support. Amazon Web Services. The challenge with mobility is also, it's the transition, I think, where if we have someone who's in a corporate position in an organization that's global, if they are working, let's say, in the US and they want to transition back to their home country or a different country, the transition process on relocating an employee, providing that personalized experience can become a challenge because there's so many other factors that come into it. Applicable tax laws, employment laws, travel and whatnot. So it is a team effort, but also it does come, like I said something about a mindset earlier, it comes from the top, right? It's not just one unit working away in isolation. There has to be trust, organizational trust in that we are doing the right thing. We are seeking out the right people. We are supporting the right people in eventually to support military medicine or whatever the company's goal or cause may be. But one of the interesting things that came out of the roundtable was also how similar, despite the differences in industry, organizations are with the challenges they face.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
There's a significant skills gap in the US labor force, right? And the pandemic has in some ways made it easier because the local labor force has essentially become global or national, but also it's broadened the scope that much that we can't really personalize the employment situations for applicants. But I do think that policy-wise, most organizations, regardless of the size, struggle with decision-making on how to best support the employee, but also to maintain compliance, which is a big piece of immigration compliance, as well as finding the right balance between business needs,
Right.
personal experience, and moving the organization along.
It's a really interesting point you bring up, because when we look at other aspects of global mobility benefits, it's usually balancing the employee experience with the needs of the business, i.e. cost, right, and convenience. But then with immigration, you throw in this third leg of the stool, which is balancing compliance too. So it's not just about the employee experience, not just about the needs of the business. You also have to be compliant with whatever country you're dealing with.
Yes, the country and the federal agencies in the US, underrated, overrated, compliance should be one of your.
Put it in the comments right now. Let's have a vote. Overrated, underrated, compliance. Put it in the comments. Let's go. Let's do a live vote right now. Overrated, underrated, compliance. Put it in. Vote right now. I see Nafis in here, Christian, Jana, Teresa, Nan, Anandita. Put it in the comments here. I want to know what you think is compliance, overrated or underrated. Okay. While we wait for the votes to come in, because there's a slight delay here. Okay. Even though we are live, there's a slight delay. We're going to have some entertainment from Christian in the form of a pun. Are you prepared for this pun?
Oh, I don't know. You're
Christian
putting me on the
says,
spot here.
authorities don't see the forest for the trees that have been killed for them.
Deep.
This makes you think.
Thought-provoking. And actually, you know what? They don't, because they miss the big picture. Even the adjudicating officers at Homeland Security or Department of State or consular posts, right? They get caught up in the weeds. It's transactional, it's processed. Your paperwork's not complete. Losing sight of the fact that the gentleman or doctor that we're asking for a benefit for is developing curative infectious diseases or is doing vaccine development for malaria or dengue, right? On that note.
Isn't that crazy that we have to beg someone to let a cure for an infectious disease into the country? To me, it seems kind of fun.
And they'll delay it because they're missing one signature or missing a piece of paper.
Meanwhile, the dengue is spreading daily. We had an outbreak in Las Vegas. It's threatening our summers. Okay, it's bad stuff out there.
I'm going to share a personal story. I have a daughter who's in Australia right now, but she was backpacking in Asia and she did get dengue in Vietnam. And that so at every level, whether it's, to Dr. Joe's point, whether you're far removed from the warfighter or whatever, at every level, something will impact you. Whether it's a family member getting sick, whether it's COVID, whether it's something else, whether it's someone who's had a traumatic brain injury, whether it's someone who's served. Thank you to all of those who have served and currently serve. It's 6 degrees of separation in that even though we are advancing military medicine, we're really advancing public health.
Yeah, really, really interesting. Compliance is underrated or overrated. We have the votes are in right now. We have all districts reporting. Christian says compliance is underrated. Interesting hot take. Nafis says underrated. Anadita says underrated. Nan says underrated. Man, am I gonna have to go on a limb here?
It's the devil we don't know and possibly don't understand, but it's the devil that will bring the doom.
Wow, that's deep. Yeah, it's interesting. Compliance should be a letter of the law thing. It should be the regulations are the regulations. You know, is it not that straightforward?
It's not, because depending on who the adjudicator is, it can be subjective. It's compliance is black and white, but it's also very boring and unglamorous and the easiest thing to overlook, because everyone chases that approval or that submission. So circling back to Christian's pun about, not missing the forest, we do all the big things, but we miss the compliance piece. So there's one little patch in the forest that can begin a forest fire. There's your compliance problem.
There you have it. Shout out to Michael Quigley checking in. Hit that like button. Jana Chesnowski says underrated as well. Anthony says underrated. That's a clean sweep. I don't know that we've ever had a more unified comments. We have to come up with something a little bit more not unifying. What's the opposite of unified? Divisive. You know what? It's an election year. Let's be divisive. Cowboys or Commanders? Get in the comments.
Oh yeah,
Your
that's
only choice.
divisive enough.
I don't want to hear from you dirty Eagles fans out there.
Or Steelers.
Are you Steelers? Are you Giants fans? You have no business here, okay? Only two options you have right now are Cowboys or Commanders. If you must choose, gun to your head, Cowboys or Commanders.
Imagine the CNC music factory, unintended, music playing in the background.
Wow. CNC Clavillis and Cole coming from the 90s. This is great. Boring, yes. Essential, yes. Very good. Thank you, Michael. Always getting to the heart of it. Christian saying somebody has to take care of enforcing adherence to compliance. That is the main problem. Yes, this is, oh man, this is great. Look at this.
What's the ratio of the Commanders?
Apparently, we have people who are voting for Brett. We have Nafis just threw a wild card in here. It says is non-overrated or underrated in honor of non-Park. You can't throw the Brett out there. These are separate votes, okay, Nafis? We're doing Commanders v Cowboys here, okay? Commanders v Cowboys. Then we'll talk about if non's overrated, okay? Nafis says Commanders. Jana says Cowboys. Oh, Mike Quigley. There you go, Mike. America's team. God bless you.
Yes, go Cowboys. So, speaking of the C's, sorry to interrupt. The C-suite, Dr. Joe was here, Dr. Joe Carvalo.
I remember that.
Cowboys, Commanders, compliance. That's the theme. That's the theme
Carvalho,
for the day.
Yes. Is Dr. Joe Carvalho a Cowboys fan?
No, not that I know of.
Is he Commanders?
He's more college football.
Okay. Well, Gonzaga doesn't really have a college football team. They're more basketball, probably. We see. I knew there was a question we didn't ask. We have another vote for Commanders. Oh, Anthony from Canada weighing in. Oh man, would have thought he said like the Alouettes or something like that. All right, we're tied up here. Hey, let's talk about this real quick. What everybody's thinking about: Cowboys at Commanders the weekend before Thanksgiving. Who wins?
Cowboys.
Hey, you're not wrong, but the Commanders have really been beefing up in the offseason. We've done nothing.
We have. They have. We haven't. True statement.
We need to, we almost need to get maybe we need to get some exceptional talent in here. We need to
maybe we need some immigrant.
At this point, we could probably take people just walking on from, somewhere else pretty much here.
Yeah, Dak makes a pretty penny to not have a championship game.
Yeah. Not saying Commanders, of course. Oh, look at this. Did you know, speaking of which, by the way, WERC this year is in DC because it's an election year.
At the Gaylord.
Yeah, and there's going to be phenomenal events going on. And I got to give a shout out to our friends USILAW because we're here. USILAW is opening their suite at the Commanders game the weekend before and the weekend after.
Wow.
To their corporate partners to come hang out. So I don't know if I'm going to see one of those games is the Carolina Panthers and one of those games is the Chicago Bears.
Okay.
I think that they picked two teams that they could actually beat.
Both the teams again.
Yes. Wow. You're on it. Well, Chicago Bears, I guess, sure. Why not? Carolina and Chicago. Very good. You're really on the seas. So will I see you at one of those games?
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not? I
Why
mean,
not?
you know, anything to bang on Jerry Jones's
Yes, the window.
window.
Yeah. So tell them what you mean by that. Talk about that. Tell that story real quick.
So we were at 2023 Cowboys Commanders game of the season.
Last year, we were
Jerry,
both there.
we were in the USILAW suite,
Mhm.
which happens to be conveniently located next to the Cowboys owner, Jerry Jones's
Yes.
suite.
The owner, all the owners sit next to their suite.
Right.
So like we could see them through the window, like she's Jerry Jones and I'm me. That's pretty much what it was.
And for the record, all you Commanders fans, we crushed y'all.
Y'all, let the y'alls come out.
But no, that was a wonderful event. We got to go on to the sidelines before the game. None took us there. That was fantastic. We actually saw Dak Prescott up close and personal. Lovely experience. Highly recommended. As long as you cheer for the Cowboys.
Yes. Yes. Now the question is if it's like the Bears or the Panthers, say the weekend before, the weekend after WERC, who are you going to root for then?
Probably the Panthers because they just have had such bad luck recently.
Yeah.
They haven't really won much. So hey, the underdog.
It's going to be hard to root for the Commanders, but I think if my good friends at USILAW took us to the game, I might have to root for the Commanders. Anandita says, look at the two Cowboys loyalists gush about their wonderful memories. Yes, I was literally banging on the glass like when we scored touchdowns.
Yeah, and so
It was
I'm not
fun.
sure if this counts as a confession or no, but after the game, we went in and stole the play sheets, the big laminated play sheets.
You went to Jerry Jones' suite
Jones' box
and
and
stole the lineup cards.
Nan was my accomplice, so
Wow, you just
I can't be on the spot.
just
by
dropping
myself.
dimes on everybody over here.
But no, this is a good segue into just like the team sport, right? Just like you have to be a real team in every sense of the word to win a game, a championship game, a Super Bowl, whatever the case may be. Immigration is also a team effort, whether it be partners with, like for us, it's our research programs that we partner with, that we support, human resources, all the divisions with finance, all the divisions within the organization. And sometimes, a lot of people are daunted by immigration. It's not really well understood because it is rather complex beast. But that said, in the spirit of promoting doing good for the warfighter, for civilian public health, and just good for humanity, I feel like I do need to give a shout out to everyone at the HJF team because it is a team effort, and nothing big's ever won without everyone on the team.
Love it. Love it. I want to just give people a glimpse because I want to promote these immigration and global mobility roundtables that we've been doing. We're going to continue to do these. We're going to continue to build on them. We're not going to really talk about necessarily the answers to these questions and what was discussed, because some of that's proprietary information, but some of the questions that came out of it I thought were really interesting. And I want to give people just kind of a flavor of some of these questions, okay? One of the ones that I thought was interesting is the debate about when is premium processing paid for. That one was one that when we asked that question, like there was like 4 different answers, and that one was one that was a little like, really, you pay for that? Really, you pay for that one? Yeah, so I thought that was interesting.
It was, and really, premium processing, it's a case-by-case basis depending. It's always driven by business necessity for any organization, right? But at the end of the day, in the real world, you kind of have to see where is the money best spent. I'm going to throw another phrase out here. Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Ooh, love it. Love it. Big fan.
So depending on where you want to put your money, whether you want to put it up front and secure somewhat of a speedy adjudication, whether you want to wait to either save the money and put it to good use somewhere else within the same research program. So it really boils down to every individual case and the decision makers for that case.
Yeah. Another question that we weren't really able to answer, that was just kind of an open question that we kind of would welcome thoughts on, was what happens when the PERM recruitment goes south? What happens when you do find a qualified person and can't proceed with the green card? What if they're H-1B for 6 years, but then can't maybe pass that qualified worker test? You know, that's an interesting one that we weren't able to solve. And you know, if anyone out there has a situation like that, when that's happened, really curious, you know, how you handle that. But these are some of the things that we debate behind closed doors.
Yeah, and that is a backbreaker question, because even the whole time when we are doing the PERM and doing the recruitment activity for the PERM, you know, sometimes you got to look, do a deep dive and look at the qualified individual and be like, do they really qualify? And it's a very risky proposition. I think the only way that we can make any sense of it is we have to continue to prepare the beneficiary, the foreign national applicant, that should there be a qualified person here, this could all end, or it couldn't, you know, we couldn't move forward with the application coming back to compliance, because that's what the federal government agency mandates.
And I think these would be actually really fun, like say webinar, since they're kind of lame sometimes, but you know, something where we get together, maybe even virtually, and discuss these with like a really big group across region, well, across the US, maybe at least, or maybe across regions, you know, and across different types of industries as well, because we tend to be kind of, you know, a lot of services industries here locally. Another question I thought was really interesting was, how long after you start employment do you start the green card process? That was a question. That another one was like, some people are right away, some people after a year, 2 years, you know. And so that was a really interesting one too, I thought, to benchmark with.
It was, and I think it's also based on it. There's multiple factors that go into that, right? It's the nature of the business, the actual position that the beneficiary is filling, but it's also in reality the country of citizenship. Some countries take a lot longer to get the green cards than others. And this is again where and we should have more of these roundtables, because immigration policy is such an evolving animal, right? Because it changes every 4 years with an administration change. Not necessarily, but largely it does in reality. And based on per country quota limitations, caps, where are we seeing traffic from? Are we seeing it mainly from a certain region of the world, or, you know, a lot of it comes from, where do the foreign national students come from? Because they come here to pursue advanced degrees and then they stay here and then they have to go through the process. But the decision of when to sponsor someone for a green card cannot be made as a blanket policy. I think it is very case specific. It just depends. It's also, at the end of the day, what is the end game, right? Do we want this person to accept the job because we're baiting them into it with the lure of, oh, we'll sponsor your green card, or do we want them to accept the job and actually do the work because they care about the mission? Yeah,
really interesting. Let's get into, we're gonna have to do that another time, where we might do some virtual ones where we can have people come in from around the US, maybe around the globe, when we start talking about some of these things. Anyway, get in the comments, let us know how we did today. Hit that like button out there. Appreciate all of you watching. Non Park says, HJF heroes behind the scenes, keeping our service members healthy, safe, and capable.
Thank you.
Nafis says, actually uninvited you now from all the Commanders games. Nafis, you gotta understand, you know, we're just trying to give a balanced viewpoint here. Really, just
it's diversity. You can't uninvite us.
Yeah, you can't uninvite us. You can't. It's too late. We already invited ourselves. You can't uninvite us. Do you want to give maybe people just a final thought to think about as we sign off today?
Well, thank you all for participating, listening. It was a great event. Thank you very much, Ben, for facilitating. Lots of thought-provoking ideas, which help feed us going forward into the position that we take, or, you know, how do we approach a situation? Again, was it Chris? I apologize to the environment daily on a daily basis about killing all these trees. But immigration is often not well enough understood essential function of any organization, especially nowadays with the workforce becoming global and every organization being committed to having a diverse and inclusive workforce. We're seeing more and more foreign nationals be part of the mainstream. So I think, you know, we're blessed, fortunate, and very fortunate to partner with USILAW. We have the same mindset on, you know, integrity of cases we file, and really love partnering with them. And thank you, Ben, and everyone at LOMO for sparking these events. They're wonderful.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thank you for participating, and thank you all for participating in the show. We wouldn't have a show without you. So again, thank you for watching out there. We love the in-person. We think there's a magic to the in-person.
Absolutely.
There's a certain level of candor that happens when we're together, and I think that's just where beautiful collaboration happens.
Energy is the word of the day.
Yeah, for sure. But it doesn't start with a C. But anyway, we will see you next time. We'll see you tomorrow. We're actually going to be going to the GSA pre-bid meeting all day tomorrow, but then we are going to be doing 11 plus, or even up to plus, even up 11 to even, I botch it every time. Anyway, we're doing that tomorrow, and then Elevate Mobility. And then also we're going to be doing on Thursday the GWERC. We're coming to you live with Kathy Partridge and other members of the GWERC. So we will see you then.